my next guest is someone making sure the West Coast continues making all those waves in the hip-hop world. Joining me now, everyone welcome Ryan Ford. Now, you're the creator of the famed West Coast music showcase, Respect the West. I see it on the shirt here.
Yeah.
For those who don't know and for those who want to hear it again, let us know right now. Tell us what Respect the West is and why you decided to put that together.
Well, I'm the executive vice president at a place called Cashmere Agency, and about 6-7 years ago, we wanted to put together a platform to unite some of this new talent you have up on the screen with some of the legendary artists we were already working with. So we were already working with, Snoop Dogg, Exhibit, DJ Quick, E40, and we were hearing about YG, Casey Veggies, of course, Odd Future, Tyler, Earl Sweatshirt. And we wanted to do a platform that brought them all together. So we started the Respect the West showcase at South by Southwest 6 years ago, and then we brought it to LA a bunch of times. Adidas has been a crazy sponsor and a big partner in the Respect the West movement. And it's something that's just still strong, For so long, West Coast hip hop was really regionalized, right? And we saw like these new cats coming up, they were from the West Coast, but they didn't necessarily sound, quote unquote, like a typical West Coast artist. So we wanted to unite them under a banner to show that they're from the same lineage of Snoop and Dr. Dre and Ice Cube, but it's a new time with new energy and new artists, and we wanted to build off of that.
Definitely. So you touched on South by Southwest. For those who weren't there, I didn't get to go. But talk about what happened at South by Southwest. You said you've been doing it there for a few years. You said six years now?
Yeah, 6 years.
Talk about South by Southwest and how the response is with Respect the West there.
It's great. It's hard to believe this now, but 6 years ago, there wasn't a lot of hip-hop at South by Southwest. So we reached out to some people we knew down in Austin and put together Respect the West. Our first showcase, we had DJ Quick, Bone Thugs, Murs, J-Rock, even Kendrick Lamar. Respect the West was the first showcase at South by Southwest that Kendrick ever performed on. So this last year, we partnered with DJ Ski and Ski TV and brought it back. And we had, Snoop, YG, Little Debbie, Audio Push, Dizzy Wright, Vince Staples out of Long Beach, and everybody came out to support. Kendrick was in the house, Jamal Charles from the Kansas City Chiefs was in the house. And what blew my mind is when Lady Gaga showed up to the event, just to show support. So I know we're doing something right at that point.
When Gaga comes out, she shut it down. Definitely, that's a big up to Lady Gaga.
She was in there getting ratchet with all the West Coast, fans.
You guys didn't know Lady Gaga got ratchet, huh? See, she does. Now let's talk more about the artists on the West Coast. In your opinion, since you're so in deep with everything, and you know it, you study, you know it, this is life, you know all the music. Who do you really feel represents the West Coast sound right now?
For me, I'm a little older, so when I hear YG, My Crazy Life, and when I hear Nipsey, or when I hear Vince Staples, it makes me nostalgic. They have a cadence and a vocal tone that reminds me of the good old days of the West Coast. But really, I'm not gonna say they represent the West Coast harder than a Dom Kennedy, a Ty Dolla $ign. All those artists represent different components of the West Coast lifestyle, and that's really what made the West Coast something special from day one.
All these hoes love me, but they don't want to seem like an old, so you gotta hit them on the low. West side, get money, gang. Suck them out for tripping, he lost his watch and his earring.
Mama ain't raised no fool. Daddy told me never leave the house without my tools. Daddy told me never trust a sucker from the streets.
Said she love me and she always praying for me, but I just wanna party. I don't wanna hurt nobody. Just wanna party.
That was YG, who took over the Revolt live stage this past Friday along with DJ Mustard. You guys, it was crazy. I can't stop listening to the album. So I feel like I'm from LA now. I can't say that from the Bay. We asked the Compton native his opinion on why West Coast rap is back in full effect.
The reason why the West Coast is so successful because everybody who's successful has been putting in work for years.
Exactly.
It ain't got nothing to do with work, bro. It was ugly for everybody. It was times when Power 106, you feel me, they ain't had, they wasn't playing no music from West Coast artists, and there was a lot of artists up there going hard on them because, you feel me, they wouldn't spend their records. But for, I feel like at that time, it wasn't really no records for them to spin because there was no connection with the music and the people in the streets, the fans. So that's why he couldn't play no records. So it was just it was ugly out here. And then, you feel me, everybody like, from us to Nipsey to Kendrick and J-Rock and Q and Dom Kennedy, Casey Veggies, everybody was putting in that work, and everybody started getting their shine and their recognition, and now we on.
That's what it is. Our guest, Ryan Ford, talked about his fame showcase, Respect the West.
Yes.
Still with us is Ryan Ford, and now joining us is editor-in-chief of Hip Hop DX, our man Justin Hunt.
What?
And guess what, guys? The tables have turned. Damage is over here. He's gonna give us his perspective as a DJ. Okay, Ryan, I'm starting with you.
Yeah.
Let's get a little deeper on the rise of West Coast rap and the evolution of hip-hop just as a whole. So we know in the 90s we've got guys like Snoop and Pac. The West was very dominant at that point, and we're just trying to figure out, how does the movements of music like that change? From, we have coast to coast, and they were together at that point. It's different now.
It's funny because hip-hop was so regionalized back then, right? You had the East Coast, you had the West Coast, and then it went down south, and the South's kind of had it for a long time. But with this new group of artists representing the West Coast, you could tell they have different influences. Of course, Dre, Snoop, Cube, all were very influential to them.
Right.
But, the internet changed a lot of stuff, right? All these blogs, downloaded music. So, Kendrick doesn't necessarily sound like this typical West Coast old school MC, but he still represents the West Coast and represents Compton. And you see that with all these different artists out here, right? Tyler and Odd Future, you don't necessarily think, oh, they're from the West Coast, but they're definitely from the West Coast, but they represent a different side of the lifestyle. There's skaters out here, there's surfers, there's the Fairfax district, So all of those play into all of these types of artists. And when you see someone from the hood, from South Central, like Nipsey, doing a pop-up shop called Crenshaw on Fairfax, you know that there's a lot of cross-pollination going on.
Okay, I like that.
Definitely. Now, Justin, I want to ask you this question. With all the resurgence with the West right now, when was the point and what artist was it that you said, all right, the West is taking over right now, they're coming right back?
Honestly, I think Kendrick was the one it became obvious. Obviously, he sold 1 million records. Once you sell 1 million anything, everybody wants to give you more money. So we knew there was going to be investment once Kendrick went platinum. And it coincided with Macklemore, who's, if you're from the East Coast, Seattle kind of still seems like the West Coast. So we knew that I knew there was money going to be invested once I started seeing artists go platinum. The point that I think really changed everything was 2005 with Snoop Dogg's Protect the West conference. And Snoop Dogg brought all the OGs from the West Coast hip hop together and had a moment of unity to squash all the beefs and let them know that this is a time where collaboration can make you a lot more money. The West Coast for a long time was leaving a lot of money on the table by beefing with each other. At the same time, the East Coast was doing it as well. The South wasn't doing that at all. So that model filtered in my opinion, once Snoop did that in 2005. As Ryan said, you start having the OGs show the younger cats how to move, and then you move into the Pac Divs, the Nipseys, the Blue and Exiles, which set the stage for TDE, which gets us to where we are now.
And I want to piggyback off of what he said, because I actually, as a radio DJ from the East Coast, I've seen that on YouTube, but I still didn't understand what was going on in the West Coast. Everybody was bigging up Kendrick, and at this time, Kendrick didn't have that big song yet. And I feel like, as a radio DJ from the East Coast, what really showed me, and this can relate to all sounds that come back, like the West Coast sound and even the down south sound, it starts with the production. When DJ Mustard did Rack City, that was being played everywhere. And we're like, okay, who's DJ Mustard? And then when he did I'm Different, it's just like, this is a whole sound. And once you start loving that beat and the way the beat sounds, then you're like, well, these rappers sound good on that. And now you open up the door for more of these artists that's coming from that coast. And that happened with the down south movement as well. It started with some production like Lex Luger. It's like, yo, we love this sound. And then a wave of rappers that originally are rapping on these beats come with it. So I feel like that's what really helped the dominance. I think, in my opinion, it starts with the production and the sound. As well as everything that happened with Snoop is squashing the beef, because that's how everybody came together. But if we didn't hear that sound, we wouldn't even know that we need to be paying attention.
And what's interesting about that is Dr. Dre, right? He's such a huge, big figure in the whole history of West Coast hip hop. And for so long, it was always like, with these new artists, is Dre co-signing? Is Snoop co-signing? Is Cube co-signing? And, you know, they had some hits, they had some failures. All three of those names were people that were co-signed to them. But when Dre got behind Kendrick, that really pushed it up a notch, right? That's when Kendrick kind of went from being this artist that was heavy on the internet to being an artist that people in New York were like, wait, I've been hearing about this kid. He's with Dr. Dre. It's a whole new movement at that point. But now, you know, with Kendrick kind of leading the charge for these new artists, it doesn't necessarily, everybody doesn't have to be with Dr. Dre. Everybody doesn't have to be with Snoop. And Dr. Dre, Snoop, Cube, Game, Exhibit, E40 are all collaborating with these different artists at different times on their records and on their own records.
I mean, it seems to me so much bigger than even just the music now. Like, the music itself has made all these other artists or all the crews have so much weight, right? The Odd Future crew, the TDE crew, you know, the YG Mustard, Ty Dolla $ign trifecta. But we're seeing it now with investment from other aspects of just music in general, like Revolt. Revolt is headquartered in Los Angeles now. You know, you have streaming, you know, companies that are headquartered here in LA now. You've got other music on television endeavors that are taking place because of all of these things that have come together at the same time. It is the DJs. It is, you know, a sense of unity. Everybody's running LA now.
Definitely. There's so much going on. I want to like move it over a little bit to eras and the longevity. We've had the Cubes and we got the Snoops and different people like that who have come before us and they've paved this way for all these young artists. How do you ask you Damage? We'll just keep going in a row like this. If you want to, I'll ask you Damage. As far as those artists now in the West Coast is concerned, and let's, you know, hey, bring in the East Coast as well too. Do you see the longevity going? As that is continuing, like with representing their areas?
This is why I see the longevity going. If you look at down south music and why it lasted so long, people are embracing it. It's not like back in '94 where people are like, oh, that's y'all sound, we got our sound. It's like, oh, this is the sound right now? We're all embracing it. We're all gonna jump on these beats. We're gonna collab with these artists. And it only makes people bigger and it puts more of a spotlight on the Bay Areas and Los Angeles. It's like, oh, who are these other rappers that are hot coming from there? So I feel like it's gonna last for a while because while the spotlight is on this area and the production is coming from this area, more artists are gonna arrive with more talent because it's clearly talent here. It's talent everywhere.
Yeah, you just gotta find it. I guess what I wanna touch on with you as well, we had mentioned it, you guys can answer either one. The West Coast remixes and the East Coast remixes, like you got the song Loyal. Chris Brown did it with Short. Got the West Coast and the East Coast. Who is it, French Montana?
Is French Montana on there?
So do you guys feel like we're gonna start seeing a lot more of that coming out with just artists in general coming together?
I think it's just a lot of, again, cross-pollination, right? If you're hot, you're hot. And every artist, even the artists that just got hot last year, want to align themselves with the artist that's just bubbling right now. So you're always going to see these new artists popping up with, you know, the kind of the legacy artists like a Puffy or Snoop or a Cube. But then you're going to see a lot more cross-pollination. These artists, they're running in the same circles. You know what I mean? LA is not only a place where Revolt is headquartered, right? All these artists from around the world come to LA to get in the studio and to do work. And, you know, artists like Puffy and Kanye have places here in LA. So, you know, the whole West Coast hip-hop sound was never just about the sound, it's also about the lifestyle. And you get out here and it's 75 degrees in January and you're hitting the beach and, you know, you're visiting one of these dispensaries. You know, your whole mind starts to open up.
That's for sure. I mean, that's the biggest one, right?
You're right.
Like, where do you want to be creative, right? Do you want to get stopped and frisked and have polar vortexes? I don't think you really want to write a song in a polar vortex, you know? So it's all those things. The artists live here. It is a community.
Exactly. It is a community as a whole. Well, thank you guys so much. I want to thank Ryan for